honor for God to even allow me to stand before his people and minister his word. For that, I don't take for granted. So let's start with 1 Samuel
1 Samuel 17
and 2.
and 2.
Yes.
And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Elah.
Go ahead.
And set the battle in array against the Philistines.
Go ahead, son.
And the Philistines stood on the mountain on the one side.
Go ahead.
And Israel stood on the mountain on the other side.
Go ahead.
And there was a valley between them.
Go ahead. A valley between them now. Go ahead, son.
And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath.
Wait a minute. Now, he's supposed to have been a champion. Nobody has defeated Goliath. Go ahead.
Named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span.
Wait a minute. 6 cubits and a span is 9 feet 9 inches. So even in David's day, the speculation was most men was 5 feet 6 inches. So if you stand and you look at a 9 feet 9 inch giant and you way down here, that would bring fear by itself. Go ahead, son.
Verse 5. And he had a helmet of brass upon his head.
Go ahead.
And he was armed with a coat of mail.
Go ahead.
And the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass.
5,000 shekels of brass. That's heavy. Go ahead, son.
And he had greaves of brass upon his legs.
Go ahead.
And a target of brass between his shoulders.
Go ahead, son.
And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam. And his spearhead weighed 600 shekels of iron.
And you say, Dr. Beverly, why are you reading all this? Because I want to show you the significance of who Goliath really was, and all the just looking at this giant will bring fear on just a regular, normal person. Go ahead, son.
And one bearing a shield went before him. And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel.
Go ahead, son.
And said unto them,
what did he say?
Why are you come out to set your battle in array?
Go ahead.
Am I not a Philistine?
Wait a minute. How you going to just come up and fight me? Am I not a Philistine? Go ahead, son.
And ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you. And let him come down to me.
Go ahead, son.
And if he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then will we be your servant.
Well, then we'll be your servant. But look at how God plays everything out. Don't you worry about how your circumstances may look today. Maybe you're facing something that's impossible and you can't get out of this situation, but it's no longer you that's in this situation. Let God handle your battle. Go ahead, son.
But if I prevail against him and kill him,
go ahead.
Then shall you be our servants.
Go ahead, son.
And serve us.
Go ahead.
And the Philistine said,
what did he say?
I defy the armies of Israel this day.
I defy the gods of Israel this day. I'm going to defy them because, hey, wait a minute. Ain't nobody able to this day been able to destroy or kill me. Go ahead, son.
Give me a man that we may fight together.
Go ahead, son.
And when Saul and all Israel heard those words of the Philistines, they were dismayed and greatly afraid.
And greatly afraid. But look at how God make things look. God is showing us today. He said, wait a minute. Don't you look at how big circumstances is. And a lot of times we go through things in our life and we think that how I'm going to come out of this here, or I don't have the finances to do what I need to do, or I want this house, but I don't have the down payment that they asked. How can I get out of this situation? How can I come up with what I need to come up with? But God's saying to you today, the battle what you're facing today is not yours. The battle is God's. So give it to God. And David was a prime example to us that, hey, wait a minute, he had bold faith to trust God. And no matter what David was facing, he trusted God. Go ahead, son.
Verse 12. Now David was the son of that Ephraimite of Bethlehem, Judah.
Go ahead, son.
Whose name was Jess.
Go ahead.
And he had 8 sons.
8 sons, but there's always that one that God is saying, this is one that's special, that I've called out of all the kids that I'm going to use. Go ahead, son.
And he had 8 sons. And the man went among the men
Go ahead.
of old man in the days of Saul.
Go ahead, son.
And the 3 eldest sons of Jess went and followed Saul to the battle.
Go ahead, son.
And the name of his 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab, the firstborn.
Go ahead.
And next under him, Abner.
And it doesn't matter whether you're young or old. God's saying, hey, I can help you in this battle if you trust me. Go ahead, son.
And the third, Shammah. And David was the youngest.
Go ahead.
And the three eldest followed Saul.
Go ahead.
But David went and returned to Saul to feed his father's sheep.
But watch this here. Now, the key to this is he went to feed his father's sheep, but then when he got ready to leave, when his father sent him to take food to his brothers, he said, hey, wait a minute, I got somebody to watch the sheep for me. A lot of times when you're doing something or God has given you a job to do, always never leave your job uncovered. Always have somebody covering your space what God has given you. Go ahead, son.
And David went and returned to Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem.
Go ahead, son.
And the Philistines drew near, morning and evening.
Go ahead.
And presented himself 40 days.
Wait a minute, 40 days, but that was tempting to, hey, wait a minute. We're going to win this battle, and this big old giant just, making itself real big and putting fear in the people, and all that was doing was just bringing fear in the people's heart. But then no matter what do 2 Timothy 1:7 says? What does that say?
2 Timothy 1:7. For God hath not given us a spirit of fear.
Wait a minute. God has not given us a spirit of fear. So no matter what you're going through today, God haven't given you a spirit of fear. But what did he give us?
But of power. And of love. And of a sound mind.
A sound mind. And that mind shouldn't be wavering. You shouldn't be going from the left to right. Keep your mind on God no matter what happens in your life. Put your trust in God. Go ahead, son.
Verse 17. And just said unto David his son.
Go ahead.
Take now for thy brethren an ephod of this parched corn.
Go ahead, son.
And these 10 loaves. And run to the camp to thy brethren.
Go ahead, son.
And carry thee 10 cheeses unto the captain of their 1,000.
But watch the brothers. They thinking that he come to pick at them and laugh at them because they in this war and they don't feel like they can meet this giant. Go ahead, son.
And look how thy brethren fare. And take their pledge.
Go ahead.
Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel
Go ahead.
were in the valley of Elah.
Go ahead, son.
Fighting with the Philistines. And David rose up early in the morning.
He did what?
He rose up early in the morning.
David rose up early in the morning. A lot of you all won't get up early in the morning sometimes just to pray or seek God. He got up early in the morning, and what did he do?
And left the sheep with a keeper.
Left the sheep with a keeper?
Left the sheep with a keeper.
Go ahead, son.
And took and went as Jess had commanded him.
Go ahead.
And he came to the trench.
Go ahead.
As the host was going forth to fight. And shouted for the battle.
Go ahead, son.
For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array.
Go ahead, son.
Army against army.
Army against army. What does Psalm 27 and 1, 2, and 3 says?
Psalms 27 and 1. The Lord is my light and my salvation.
Wait a minute. You got to know that God is your light and your salvation. Go ahead, son.
Whom shall I fear?
Whom shall I fear? I don't care if this giant is 9 feet, 9 inches tall. Whom shall I fear? Go ahead, son.
The Lord is the strength of my life.
Wait a minute. David wrote some of the beautifulest songs.
Oh, yes.
The Lord is the strength of my life. Go ahead, son.
Of whom shall I be afraid?
Whom shall I be afraid? Go ahead, son.
When the wicked, even my enemies and my foes, came upon me to
Wait a minute. My enemies and my foes came upon me. What happened?
eat up my flesh.
They came to eat up my flesh, but what happened?
They stumbled and fell.
They stumbled and fell. Goliath stumbled and fell. Go ahead, son.
Though a host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear.
Right. Why?
The war should rise against me, in this will I be confident.
In this, wars may rise up against you, but in this you should be confident that you'll put your trust in God. Go ahead, overseer.
Verse 22. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage.
Go ahead, son.
And ran into the army. And came and saluted his brethren.
Go ahead, son.
And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath.
Wait a minute. The Philistine of Gad. Go ahead, son.
Goliath by name.
Go ahead, son.
out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same word, and David heard them.
Go ahead, son.
And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man,
Go ahead.
fled from him,
Go ahead.
and were so afraid.
And they were so afraid. What do Psalm 23 and 4 says?
Psalms 23 and 4. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
Wait a minute. Yea, though I walk through the valleys of the shadow of death, what will I not do?
I will fear no evil.
I won't fear no evil. Why?
For thou art with me.
For God is with you. He's with you. So no matter what happens in your life, you got to know that God is with you. Go ahead, son.
Verse 25. And the men of Israel said, have you seen this man that is come up?
Wait a minute. You done seen this man that come up? Go ahead, son.
Surely to defy Israel is he come up.
Go ahead.
And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches.
So then, wait a minute. But David came and asked, he said, you know, who is this? What's going to happen if the person destroy this Philistine, this uncircumcised Philistine? You got to drop down a little further where David was talking about he killed a lion and a bear. Because we're not going to have time to go all the way through it. But you read the story, because the story means something, and it shows how David had bold faith, that he trusted in God. And David didn't forget about the things that God had did for him in the past. And that's how so many of us is. God do things for us in the past, and we forget about, hey, God did this for me, or he brought me through this situation, or God delivered me from this situation. That gives us that bold faith to know if God did it once, he can do it again. Go ahead, son.
Verse 32. And David said to Saul,
what did he say?
let no man's heart fail because of him.
Don't be afraid. Don't let no man's heart fail because of this giant. Go ahead, son.
Thy servant will go and fight with the Philistine.
Wait a minute. Thy servant will go and I'll fight with this Philistine. Even though he's 9 feet 9 inches and I'm just 5 feet 6 inches, it doesn't matter because this battle is not mine, it's God's. Go ahead, son.
Verse 33. And Saul said to David,
what did he say?
thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him.
Go ahead, son.
For thou art but a youth.
Wait a minute. You just a youth. You just a little boy. You can't handle this giant. Give me Ephesians 6, 10 and 11. What does that say? Go ahead, overseer, while they're looking for that.
And he a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Saul,
what did he say?
thy servant kept his father's sheep. And there came a lion.
There came a lion, and what happened?
And a bear. And took a lamb out of the flock.
Wait a minute. He took a lamb out of the flock, but watch how bold David talks about what he did and how God did it. Go ahead.
And I went out after him and smote him.
Go ahead.
And delivered it out of his mouth.
Wait a minute. I went out and I smote him. I delivered it out of his mouth. Go ahead, son.
And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard.
He did what?
I caught him by his beard.
My bold faith. He ain't scared. He's trusting in God. Go ahead, son.
And smote him. And slew him.
And did what?
And slew him.
Go ahead, son.
Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear.
The lion and the bear. Go ahead, son.
And this uncircumcised Philistine.
What did he call it?
Uncircumcised
this
Philistine.
Uncircumcised Philistine. I'm going to slay him too. Go ahead, son.
Shall be as one of them.
Go ahead. Ephesians 6, 10 and 11. What does that say?
Ephesians 6 and 10. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord.
Finally, after you done did everything you know to do, be strong in the Lord. Go ahead.
And in the power of his might.
And the power of your own might.
Of his might.
And of his might. Go ahead, son.
Put on the whole armor of God.
Do what?
Put on the whole armor of God.
Put on the whole armor of God. Wrap yourself in the word of God.
Yes,
Wrap
sir.
yourself in bold faith. Go ahead, son.
That ye may be able to withstand the wiles of the devil.
Go ahead, daughter.
For we wrestle not against flesh and blood.
We wrestle not against flesh and blood. What we wrestle against?
But against principalities.
What? Against what?
Principalities.
Principalities and what?
Against powers. Against the rulers of the darkness of this world. Against spiritual wickedness in high places.
Overseer, go ahead, son.
David said, moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion
Go ahead, son.
and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine.
Wait a minute, he'll deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. David was so assured of God, not himself, that if God delivered him out of the bear and the lion, surely God can deliver him out of this giant. Go ahead, son.
Seeing he have defied the armies of the living God.
Wait a minute, he defied the armies of the living God. He talked about my Savior. So I got to come against it. I got to kill this Philistine. Go ahead, son.
And Saul said unto David,
what did he say?
Go. And the Lord be with thee.
He said, go and the Lord be with you. Go ahead, son.
And Saul armed David with his armor. And he put on a helmet of brass.
Wait a minute. Just drop down a little bit more. He put on this armor and all this heavy stuff, but David said, hey, wait a minute, I haven't been proven in this. See, I don't know what this gonna do. I'll just get me some smooth rocks and stones in my hand. I'll get my bag and I'll get my sling and then I'm gonna slay this giant. Go ahead, son.
And David said unto Saul,
what did he say?
I cannot go with thee, for I have not proved them.
Go ahead, son.
And David put them off of him. And he took his staff in his hand.
Go ahead.
And chose him 5 smooth stones.
5 smooth stones. Go ahead, son.
Out of the brook. And put them in a shepherd's bag which he had.
Go ahead, son.
Even in a scrip.
Go ahead.
And his sling was in his hand.
Joshua 1 and 9. Go ahead, son.
And he drew near to the Philistines. And the Philistines came on and drew near unto David.
Go ahead, son.
And the man that bare the shield went before him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him.
He laughed at him and looked at him like, who do you think you are? That you coming against me, you little old ruddy fella? Who do you think you are? Go ahead, son.
For he was but a youth. And ruddy, and of a fair countenance.
And of a fair continent. Go ahead, son.
And the Philistine said unto David, am I a dog that thou should come to me with staffs?
Wait a minute, am I a dog? You gonna come to me with a staff? What are you doing? What Joshua 1 and 9 says?
Joshua 1 and 9. Have I not commanded thee? Be strong and of good courage.
Wait a minute, God sent a commandment to all of us. Haven't I commanded you? Be strong. Go ahead, son.
Be not afraid.
Bro, don't be afraid of nothing. Go ahead.
Neither be thou dismayed.
But don't be dismayed by nothing, how things look, what it may appear to be. Go ahead, son.
For the Lord thy God is with thee whithersoever thou goest.
And that's what we have to remember. We walking in bold faith. And God said, wherever you go, I'm with you. No matter what you do, where you go, if you put your trust in God, God said, I'm with you. Go ahead, overseer.
And the Philistine cursed David by his God. And the Philistine said to David,
what did he say?
Come to me.
Come to me, you little ruddy fellow. Come on. Go ahead, son.
And I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air.
Go ahead, son.
And to the beasts of the field.
Go ahead, son.
Then said David to the Philistine.
What did he say to the Philistine?
Thou comest to me with a sword. And with a spear.
I love this part.
And
go ahead.
with a shield.
Go ahead, son.
But I come.
I come.
But I come.
I come.
I come.
I come.
To thee. In the name of the Lord of hosts.
I'm asking you today, who are you coming in? Whose name are you coming in? Are you coming in your name or are you coming in the name of the Lord? Go ahead, son.
The name of the Lord of hosts. The God of the armies of Israel.
Go ahead, son.
Whom thou hast defiled. This day will the Lord deliver thee into my hand.
Wait a minute. Now, David talking bold faith. He said, this day the Lord will deliver you into my hands. Go ahead, son.
And I will smite thee. And take thy head from thee.
Romans 8 and 31. Go ahead, overseer.
And I will give the carcass of the host of the Philistine.
Go ahead, son.
This day unto the fowls of the air.
Go ahead, son.
And to the wild beasts of the earth.
Go ahead.
That all the earth may know that there is a God.
Wait a minute. That all the earth may know from this day forward there is a God. Go ahead.
There is a God in Israel.
Go ahead, son.
And all this assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear.
Go ahead, son.
For the battle is the Lord.
What?
The battle is the Lord.
I don't think they heard you.
For the battle is the Lord.
The battle is the Lord. No matter what battle you're facing today, the battle is the Lord. It's not your battle, but it's God's battle. Stop trying to take the battle in your hand and give the battle to God. Go ahead, son.
For the battle is the Lord. And he will give you into our hand.
Go ahead, Romans 8 and 31. What does that say?
Romans 8 and 31. What shall we say then to these?
What we gonna say to these things? Go ahead, son, daughter.
If God be for us.
If what?
If God be for us.
If God be for us, what happens?
Who can be against us?
Who can be against us? I'm telling you today, if God is for you, who can be against you? Stop worrying about people and put your heart and put your trust in God, knowing that whatever situation you're in today, God will bring you out of the situation.